Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel, and once again myself and Ian are off on our little trek across Hadrian's Wall. And I don't know if you can see from where the video's been taken at the moment, but just down in the distance there is the bridging point which we made a video at on Monday. So down there is the Chester's Bridge, and beyond that is the fort of Calernum, which is now known as Chester's. Now, if you look at the makeup of Hadrian's Wall, basically you've got Hadrian's Wall. That's just one part of the whole story. So Hadrian's Wall at this point is limestone, and it's about 2 meters wide. At one point it actually becomes quite narrow, the equivalent of like a, let's say, a narrow gauge railway. It goes down to a narrow wall. And in one section it's also turfed with a wooden rampart on top. But the amazing thing is, as well as having forts dotted along the wall, some of them set beyond, or like Chester's, it spans the wall itself. So you've got a bit of the fort in front of the wall, a bit of it to the south. You've also got mile castles, which we have mentioned before, and they generally held about 10 to 15 men. However, we're actually stood inside one of the best preserved turrets on Hadrian's Wall, and in theory there was meant to be 2 turrets between each mile castle. Now, some people call a turret a turret, other people actually call them signalling towers, or you could actually call them observation towers. And technically, whereas the mile castle had about 10 to 15 men and the forts could hold hundreds of men, the idea of these is they're meant to be manned permanently, like all the other structures as well, but these are meant to be manned by the smallest unit within the Roman army. So we're looking at around about 8 men. So inside here we'd have 8 men stationed here, probably 1 or 2 on constant watch upstairs, and then the people here knew that a bit further on would be another turret, so 2 turrets, then the mile castle, and then possibly, not always, but possibly a fort a little bit further on. The idea of these was to watch out. They could be used for signalling, and they could be protected if they needed to be by the men within it, but they always had support from the next turret, possibly the mile castle where there was a bigger unit, and then obviously a fort as well. So security is absolutely fantastic here. Now, as I said, this is Brunton turret, and this is actually one of the best preserved ones on Hadrian's Wall, mainly because most of them you're only looking at the foundation stones, whereas this one you actually see more than one layer of stone. You're actually looking at quite a high wall in here. Now, I'm using a very good book, Osprey. Osprey do a vast collection of books, and I must say the best thing about these books is not just the writing within them, it's also the illustrations. And in here there's a very good illustration of what the inside of a turret would have looked like. And what you will be able to see from this is the turret is fixed up against Hadrian's Wall in there, and then downstairs you would have had the what we would probably say today the admin room, the administrative room. So in there, a bench, couple of benches, a hearth for cooking the odd meal on, mainly for keeping the soldiers warm here in the winter. And then there would have been a ladder. Now, the idea of the ladders is if this was ever taken, for some weird reason, the Britons, rebel Britons, managed to get over the wall, or had come through another gate or overran another guard, is if they came to this doorway and got in, the inhabitants could literally go upstairs to the wooden floor above, pull the ladder up, and as all Romans were also taught to use the bow, even if they weren't archers, they could defend this turret. And by that time, signals would have gone out to the next turret. Maybe that would have gone down to the mile castle. Maybe that had gone down to the fort, depending on how big the attack was here. And then more support could come. Security is the key here. Even today, people are not 100% sure the role of Hadrian's Wall. Was it purely security? Was it for taxation purposes? Was it to protect the people within the empire, or was it actually to keep the barbarians out? We will never fully know, but definitely security has a lot to play. As you can see from the upper floor, there could have been up there one bed, so one man could have a little sleep while the other was on guard. But the main thing up here was you could store your bows, your arrows, slings and slingshots as well. Romans were taught to use other weapons, not just their pilum and gladius. And as you can see in this picture, there's a soldier handling his clipius, his oval shields, the ones that were used by the auxiliaries. Because what you have to remember is, even though Hadrian's Wall was built by the legions, technically it was manned by the auxiliary troops, and that's really key, this multicultural army that they had up here. But hopefully you've enjoyed this video on the turret. We'll try and get to a mile castle to talk about a mile castle, and obviously we'll get to a fort to talk about those in time. If anyone's got any questions that you want to pose to us whilst we're up here, please do. You can pose your questions on here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, by the way, or you can pose them on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which we'll also be posting these videos on. Now, I don't know if Ian can pan down, because there's some amazing features in this turret which you don't see all the time. And we've actually got down here in the corner the stone cutaway for the hinge part of the door, and we've also got part of the door jamb here. And that's the interesting thing about these forts and features up here. They all have lots of little details that you don't always see. So like I said, support heritage, get out there, be socially distant, make sure if you are walking the wall, do what myself and Ian was doing. When you're opening the stiles, when you're opening gates, wash your hands with sanitizer, and then at some point wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water. And generally, whilst you're walking, just be aware of people around you. Stay alert, as they say. Anyway, on that note, stay safe, and we'll see you later on. Bye-bye.